Good afternoon, everyone, and happy Wednesday. It's Alyssa Corman, Justin Nielsen here with a look at the stock market today. We're going to break down the action for the major indexes. The Nasdaq did not have a very good showing today, and it looks like small caps and blue chips are still where it's at, Justin.
Yeah, absolutely. And so to that end, we'll go ahead and take a look at one of the big caps. Boeing is where we'll start, but we'll also take a look at some of the non-tech names that are setting up and breaking out, including CF Industries and Regal Beloit.
Great. Well, we'll take a look at a couple of market charts here. First, the Nasdaq, which finished down fractionally for the day, came right up to that 21-day line, but hit resistance there. We also had the Dow up about 1.5% for the day, and the Russell 2000 up almost 2%, Justin. The S&P 500 up 0.6%. So we're still seeing this rotation out of tech. Can't really seem to fully bounce back with power from the bottom quite yet.
Well, and it really is a tale of two markets. So a lot of people, we went to market in correction, a little while ago, and one of the things that we were doing is we were looking at the Nasdaq. That's where the strength was. That's where a lot of the growth was in 2020, and so that's the reason why we went to market in correction. But it quickly became apparent, and this is something that we were aware of earlier in the year, that there was some rotation going on, and the S&P 500, Dow Jones Industrial Average, and as you mentioned, the Russell 2000 Small Cap Index have all been showing a very different picture. And so if you just use the 21-day moving average line, as you suggested, the Nasdaq is getting resistance right there. So until it gets above that line, it's really still in kind of a correction mode. However, you look at the Dow Jones Industrial Average, new highs, so it's a very different market that we're seeing right there. And so you're showing the Spider Dow Jones ETF, which is DIA, kind of showing you what the Dow Jones Industrial average traded up. But even the S&P 500, it still does have a lot of tech in there, but it's got itself above its 21-day moving average line, not too far away from its highs. It got support at its 50-day moving average line. And we should also look at the IWM, since you mentioned it, the Russell 2000. This again is a iShares Russell 2000 ETF. It doesn't look like a correction at all. This is kind of broken above a downtrend. If you just kind of drew a downtrend line from those highs, this is broken above that and is, right there almost at new highs as well. So it's a very different market depending on what index you're looking at, but that kind of tells you where you should be looking for individual stock names and ideas. And that's where we've been seeing the breakouts and the setups as well.
That's exactly right. And a lot of the growth leaders of the past year are taking a break, if not looking broken. So at the very least, many of those charts need some time, even if the Nasdaq did happen to see its bottom. So let's take a look at some of the setups that we are seeing now elsewhere, kicking things off with Boeing. A strong day for Boeing, up over 6%, heavy turnover, and it is vying for a breakout over this cup base here, Justin.
Right. So again, when you look at what's kind of powering the Dow Jones Industrial Average, this is one of them. It's not the biggest weight, but it's a decent weight, and you go up 6-7%, that's going to have an impact on the Dow. So that's one of the things to just be aware of. Now, if you pull back to the weekly on this, you see that yes, this is way off its highs. That coronavirus crash, not only did that hurt, but remember we had the max trouble that it was having before that. It's going to have some easy comparisons. So as a turnaround play, this might make sense. It's not a normal though, because look at this relative strength rating at 33. That's pretty dismal. But it has shown strength. This is not something where we're trying to time the bottom here. This is what we call a bottoming base. And one of our first things that we look for in a bottoming base is that it's gotten enough strength to get back above its 200-day moving average line and ideally above its 50-day moving average line. In this case, that corresponds to the 40-week moving average line on the weekly chart and the 10-week moving average line. That's the red line, the 10-week, and the black line, the 40-week right there.
That's right. So Boeing looking pretty interesting here. All right, and next on our
And
list, let's take a
we should
oh
just say, you know what, before we move on, you pointed out that the estimates look like,
oh
they're going to
yeah,
be strong, but the fundamentals, when you're looking at some of these turnaround plays, the fundamentals are going to be
yes.
dismal. Again, this is not our typical thing that we'd be looking at. But the reason why I wanted to bring it up was kind of in that context of the Dow and what's kind of powering that.
hmm That's an extremely good point there, Justin. And we also are seeing some interesting names in the chemicals groups, including CF Industries. We have this RS line blue dot here on the weekly, along with an ascending base. The stock is up almost 5% for the week already, Justin.
Right. And so this is something that, again, we've been talking about on IBD Live since the beginning of the year. David Ryan was kind of pounding the table very early on as a special guest, mentioning a lot of the fertilizer plays. And this is not the first time that fertilizer has had a striking appearance on our screens. This is something that happened, back, in 2005, 2006, all the way up to 2007 with names like Potash and Mosaic, and CF as well back then. So, what's happening is you sometimes will have these industry group moves, and you can have pressure on the price of fertilizer. I remember back then, and again, this was 15 years ago. I was on an airplane talking with a farmer, and he's like, "I can't believe the price of fertilizer. It's killing me." So you've got the price of fertilizer, really kind of ramping up in a lot of these areas. You've got supply, especially like with a high corn yield that they're looking for. That's one of those things where it needs a lot of fertilizer, and so
Mm,
there's also supply constraints. So you got a lot of things kind of going into the fertilizer business that's causing that rise in price. But what I found interesting about CF Industries, and by the way, this was the stock of the day coming out of this ascending base here,
that's right.
is that they're also trying to do a clean energy play. All this talk about hydrogen fuel cells as being a way to get clean energy. Well, guess what? A component of ammonia is in the fertilizer. If you remember from high school chemistry, NH3. So hydrogen is a part of that. And they do have a lot of ways of transporting that ammonia, a lot of infrastructure already in place for transporting that ammonia, and a lot of things that are already kind of hurdles in terms of regulation that's already there. And so CF is talking about getting a little bit more involved in the green energy, clean energy that they can offer potentially with ammonia.
That's right. And CF isn't a lone wolf. We've been
Right.
talking this year about IPI, Intrepid Potash, Mosaic as well, ticker MOS. So CF definitely in good company there with some nice technical action.
Right.
And last but not least, we want to take a look at RBC. Justin, another stock with that RS line blue dot on the weekly chart here.
Yeah, so if you go to the daily on this, you can kind of see that this is just completing what looks like a cup base. Now, there wasn't much volume on it today. That's okay. This is still forming that right side. Now, one of the reasons I wanted to bring this up is because this actually appeared on our IBD breakout stocks index this week. And one of the things that we do with that index is we're using pattern recognition. So the line that you see, those green lines, the dashed line, all of that stuff that you see in MarketSmith, the pattern recognition, that's what we're using to pick stocks for the IBD breakout stock index. It's an algorithm that does it. It's a computerized system, but this is one that it picked up this week, and it's got some interesting things, about it. We, of course, have been talking a lot about Generac. That's in the same industry group, but this one, it's interesting. As much as this is a smaller market cap company in relation to Generac, the sales are really up there in terms of having quite a bit in terms of sales. You just look at those last few quarters, well above 700 million, consistently. This is also, you look at that earning stability of 7, so the EPS growth rate isn't high, but it is very stable. And there's a lot of things that they're doing outside of generators, with gearboxes and things like that. So again, it's a lot of these things that are kind of more the infrastructure, the production. I mean,
Mhm.
they're doing their gearboxes for warehouses and conveyor belts and all of these things that are probably looking to ramp up. And so Matt Galgani had a great story on this today, I believe. He came out with that. So that might be one worth looking into. If you're looking at a lot of things that have already broken out, this is one that looks like it's poised for a breakout soon.
That it does. Yeah, we have been talking a lot about these turnaround plays and stocks and these other groups outside of technology, which, of course, there's a lot of stories in the technology group that you can easily get behind. But Justin, I mean, you are making all of these stories sound very compelling and I think worthy of investors looking further into to help them learn more about these stocks that are setting up very nicely. So thanks so much for providing all of that detail for us today.
Well, and again, I got a lot of this from investors.com. You just put in the symbol, read the story. Jed Graham did a great story on CF today as IBD stock of the day. And as I mentioned, Matt Galgani did a great story on RBC. So that's a great place to start with your information.
Exactly. Yeah, we get asked all the time, what are the tools that you guys are using to screen and, do this and that or the other. And of course we have all that too. And we love that, but you're right. Investors.com, there's a wealth of information there. So of course we recommend everyone checking that out, and you can do it on the go too, right on your phone. Thanks everyone for watching. The conversation, of course, is going to continue tomorrow morning on IBD Live, where our experts are sharing their screens, talking about notable stocks, all of this group rotation that we've been seeing, overall market conditions, portfolio management tips, you name it. We're talking about it on the show. And you never know what special guest is going to either stop by or text Arusha, apparently. Right. So make sure you tune in, investors.com/IBD Live. We'll see you there tomorrow and right back here after the close.